Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on why the American dollar is, without a doubt, the single most fought-over asset in the modern world. Picture this for a second. It's a completely average Tuesday afternoon in Lagos, Nigeria. A trader is buying auto parts from a supplier over in Dubai. Now, neither of them uses the Nigerian naira, and neither uses the UAE dirham. Instead, the invoice is written entirely in United States dollars. And you know what? This happens billions of times a day between countries that sometimes intensely dislike each other. Yet they all reach for the exact same green paper or digital entries denominated in the currency of a single nation thousands of miles away.
So you really have to wonder, why is every nation on Earth quietly fighting over your standard dollar bill? Well, you see, rather than just being a simple medium of exchange, the plumbing of global finance actually dictates the flow of global power. Whoever controls the financial pipes literally controls the geopolitical leverage. And right now, for the first time in nearly 80 years, that dollar-dominated empire is under a serious, multi-front siege.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, How the Dollar Became King. To truly understand the siege we're seeing right now, we first have to look back at how the dollar conquered the planet's financial system in the first place. It officially started way back in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference. That's where the US dollar was pegged directly to gold and then every other currency pegged to the dollar. But jump ahead to 1971 and the system was totally cracking. There was simply way more dollars circulating globally than the US had physical gold to back them up with. So President Richard Nixon unilaterally severed the dollar from gold. And that, fascinatingly, leads us to the petrodollar loop. It was this incredibly elegant three-step system that replaced the gold anchor with an unavoidable energy anchor. In the early 1970s, the US struck a deal. Saudi Arabia would price all its oil exclusively in US dollars. Since virtually every nation on Earth needs oil, every nation suddenly needed to acquire US dollars just to keep their lights on and their factories running. And those surplus dollars, they were recycled right back into American government debt. That specific system created an absolutely insatiable global demand for US government debt. It gave America what a French finance minister famously called an exorbitant privilege. Because the whole world needs to park their dollars somewhere safe, right? So they buy US Treasury bonds. This props up a staggering $30 trillion Treasury market. And what that does is give the US government artificially low borrowing costs, completely insulating it from the exchange rate risks that plague pretty much every other nation on the planet.
Moving right along to Section 2, the weaponization of money.
For decades, this global plumbing, which includes messaging systems like SWIFT, was seen as a totally neutral utility. It was basically the postal service of international banking. But that was until the United States and its allies began using it as an active geopolitical weapon. The really shocking moment arrived in 2022, when Western governments froze roughly $300 billion of Russia's central bank reserves overnight. To central bankers watching around the globe, this completely shattered a core assumption of the modern world. It proved that your sovereign foreign reserves, yeah, they're only truly yours to the extent that Washington politically agrees with you. In fact, disconnecting major Russian banks from the SWIFT messaging system was described exactly like this by French officials: a financial nuclear weapon. It sent a truly terrifying message to capitals worldwide. It essentially said that even years of careful preparation might not insulate your nation from the consequences of dollar weaponization if you rely on Western financial infrastructure.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Global Currency Rebellion.
That inciting incident basically threw gasoline on a multi-front rebellion. What used to be this slow, kind of academic conversation about de-dollarization rapidly accelerated into well-funded campaigns by rival nations to lay down entirely new financial pipes. But just look at the sheer scale comparison we have here. China has spent a decade methodically building its own cross-border interbank payment system, or CIPS. But while Beijing is definitely making progress, CIPS is still absolutely dwarfed by the daily volume of America's chip system, which processes a mind-blowing $1.9 trillion every single day. So the infrastructure is being built, sure, but the organic global demand to use it simply isn't there yet.
Meanwhile, the broader BRICS coalition, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and its newer members, is pushing a really ambitious suite of alternative architectures. Rather than building one massive new network completely from scratch, they're smartly trying to bypass those dollar rails entirely by interconnecting their own highly successful national payment systems, like India's UPI and Brazil's Pix. They're even proposing things like the Unit, which is a new blockchain-based token backed by actual physical gold.
However, and it is absolutely crucial that we impartially note this, BRICS is not a monolith. Not at all. Nations like India actively signed independent trade deals with the US and very publicly disclaim any unified anti-dollar policy. Russia's obviously pushing hard for de-dollarization out of absolute necessity, but other members? They're mostly just looking for pragmatic insurance, not necessarily a full-blown revolution. And if we step back and look at the actual potential challengers, we see some deep structural roadblocks. The euro remains stuck at about 20% of global reserves because Europe's capital markets are super fragmented. There's just no single massive European safe asset that can even begin to compare to the US Treasury market. And the heavily controlled Chinese yuan? It struggles at a mere 3% because of Beijing's incredibly strict capital controls.
So let's explore the next phase in Section 4, Gold and Digital Dollars.
Because sovereign fiat currencies carry some severe counterparty risk, meaning they rely entirely on the goodwill of another government, the rebellion has unexpectedly turned back to a 5,000-year-old asset. Physical gold held in a domestic vault cannot be frozen, it can't be sanctioned, and it can't be deleted by a foreign government. It is the ultimate sovereign property. And that perfectly explains this massive, historically unprecedented surge in central bank purchasing we've seen over the last 2 years, literally doubling the pace of the previous decade. In fact, recently, the collective gold holdings of foreign central banks actually surpassed their holdings of US Treasuries for the very first time in decades.
But how is America responding to these physical and geopolitical challenges? Well, they're leaning heavily into digital financial innovation through stablecoins. It's fascinating because at the exact same time rival nations are hoarding gold, the crypto market actually overwhelmingly prefers the US dollar, with around 99% of the entire global stablecoin market pegged directly to it.
America's brilliant countermove here is something called the Genius Act. By regulating this $300 billion stablecoin market and requiring issuers to back their digital tokens one-to-one with assets like US Treasuries, the US basically legally embeds global digital dollarization. Think about it. It allows a citizen in a country with high inflation to hold digital dollars right on their smartphone, while simultaneously locking in massive structural demand for short-term US government debt. It's a huge win-win for the dollar.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, a multipolar financial future.
With the American empire testing these brand new digital defenses against a barrage of physical gold accumulation and alternative BRICS payment rails, we really have to ask the ultimate question: can this dollar-dominated system actually fall? History gives us a kind of chilling echo here. You know, it's a super common misconception that the British pound sterling collapsed overnight. It didn't. It suffered a really slow, multi-decade bleed. It dropped from an overwhelming 81% of global reserves in 1945 down to just 11% by 1973. This totally proves that financial empires erode gradually at the margins, not all at once.
The warning signs that preceded the decline of the pound look, well, remarkably similar to the flashing red lights around America today. We're talking massive military overextension, a soaring $38 trillion national debt, the explicit weaponization of banking plumbing, and motivated rivals deliberately building alternative financial rails to secure their own independence.
But here is the absolutely critical difference. Unlike the 1940s, when the mighty US dollar was clearly positioned to just cleanly absorb the pound's role, there is absolutely no single successor waiting in the wings today. Because of this, careful analysts suggest we aren't headed for a sudden dollar collapse. Rather, we are slowly drifting into a much more fragmented, multipolar financial system where the dollar is going to have to share the stage with gold, regional currencies, and digital assets.
Ultimately, the plumbing of global finance controls the flow of world power. As these pipes get rerouted, and as nations quietly stockpile physical gold while America pushes for digital dollars, we are left with one really profound mystery to ponder as this whole new era unfolds. If power fragments alongside the money, what does the next chapter of global history actually look like? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helps you see the world's most fought-over piece of paper in a whole new light.